This is Veronica, foster mom, back with another Chronicle. And this is the Chronicle of O, and it's actually part two. So if you have not watched O's Chronicle, not to be confused with Baby O, but if you haven't watched O's Chronicle, I ask that you please pause this video and go back and watch that one first, because you do need to have context before you watch this one, okay? So go ahead and hit that pause button, go back and search through the Chronicles and view O's Chronicle, and then come back and watch this one. Okay, so this is O, the one that my family jokingly referred to as the 54-year-old trapped inside the 4-year-old's body. So he was actually brought back into our life, y'all. So here's what happened. So I get a call from DCS saying, hey, can you take this sibling group of two? And I'm just going to tell you up front, I was exhausted. It had been a long day. I think you all know that I do work. So I had gotten off work. My husband was working this particular night. He usually works during the day, but he was working this particular night. So I was home, by myself. And so I received this, I said phone call, but I mean, I received a text from someone in placement, and they said, hey, can you take this sibling group of two? And I just wrote back and said, hey, sorry, no, I can't. And then after I did that, I started thinking, it was just something within me. I was like, I probably said no too quickly, and I didn't even consult my husband. As you all know, this is a family thing. Fostering is a family thing for us. We make decisions together, and I realized that I hadn't even looped him in. So I just sent him a text and said, hey, just wanted to let you know, I turned down this placement of two. And I thought that was the end of that. But he texted me back and he goes, did you ask any information? Like maybe they are, maybe there aren't any trouble. Maybe you could handle it. And I was like, so you know what? Good point. I was like, I doubt that I'm going to do this, but let me reach back out. And so I just I actually ended up calling the person at that point and said, hey, I know I had said no, but, just want to get some more information on the kiddos. What can you tell me about them? And the worker said, well, actually, as she was looking in the computer, she said, actually, I called you because I see here that they have been placed in your home before. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, about 5 years ago. And I was like, well, who are they? And then she told me the names, and you guessed it, it was O and his sister. And so I was floored. So this is like I said, like 5 years later. I had so many questions. I was like, where have they been? Have they been in foster care all these years? And she said, no, they had been, they did get returned to their mother, but she's still struggling. There's issues. And so now they're back in foster care. And so that really tugged at my heart, y'all. Not only that, just the fact that the way that everything happened, like the fact that I initially said no, and then my husband felt like, hey, you need to, reconsider. He didn't even know who the kids were. So I really felt it was like just one of those divine things. And I was just super excited to be able to see O again, because at this time he was probably about 10 years old. And so I said yes, and the worker ended up bringing him and his sister, and it was like a reunion. So the sister remembered us. She was a little older, but he didn't. But I ended up calling, if you all remember from that video, my son, one of my sons, and really connected. Like they hit it off, right? And so I called my son and I was like, you'll never guess who's here tonight. And so finally told him. He was like, what? And so they FaceTime, and again, didn't really recognize him, but he got a kick out of hearing, like, so, he got a kick out of, number one, having been in our home before. So it felt more familiar to him, even though, at that point we kind of were still strangers. But he he was, just seemed really happy to be with us and really connected. And then so he and my son FaceTime and they were talking, and then found out my son had actually, remember when I said that about what are them, the muscles? So my son had recorded a snippet of that. And so he sent over the recording, and so I showed it to O. He's laughing and he was like, play it again, play it again. And so I played it again. And so I ended up playing it probably like 10 times that night. But it was like, I'm not kidding, like a family reunion that night. We sat up and just talking and, just really, trying to find, hey, what's going on? So it's kind of like there's just, this two-edged sword, right? Like there's super happy to have them back in our lives. But at the same time, it was an unfortunate situation, right? Because they're back in foster care because obviously the home was not suitable. But we were able to stay in contact. So that night, I think I ended up keeping them maybe 3 or 4 nights. I did find out they were in the process of being placed with relatives. So that was a good thing. And actually, it ended up like over the course of the next month, we did temporary placements with O. And so his sister, there was a relative that came forward because we found out that O and his sister, could be wrong on this, but I believe they have different dads. And so someone on her dad's side of the family did come forward for her. So she was able to exit foster care. He was still in foster care a little bit longer. So over the course of the month, we did temp placements because he did have a placement. I believe they said she was a teacher. And so there were just some nights that she had to work and she couldn't keep him, or training or something was going on where she couldn't keep him every night. And so on those nights, he would come to us. And so I gotta tell you, personality's still the same. Like super funny kid, fun, sweet personality, but like had me laughing. Like I'm telling you, this kid should be a comedian when he grows up. And so he would come. I will say though, like on the unfortunate side of it, he still was afraid of the dark. And so he would every night I put him to bed and he'd ask me if I would go to sleep in the room with him. And so I'd go get my pillow, my blanket, and I'd lay on the floor and I'd pray for him, pray with him, and then I'd wait in the room until he fell asleep and then I would leave. And so, like I said, over the course of a month, we kept him several days. It was just really like, he'll always have this special place in my heart. I don't know what it is about him. But I do want to point out too, another sweet story. They called us one night and they were like, hey, can you take O back for the weekend? Again, it was another one of those times where you had a lot going on that week. So I was, just really looking forward to just relaxing, just not doing anything. But the worker mentioned that it was his birthday that day. So, I mean, how could you say no, right? Like, you don't want the child in foster care. I think he was in a group home because they didn't have I think there's a lot to his story. I believe the placement that he was with, the teacher, it didn't work out. But think about it, like he's had so much going on in his life. I think he was acting out, and, had some tantrums, anger issues. And so he ended up leaving there and going to a group home. And so I didn't want him to spend his group home. My entire family, none of us in the family wanted him to spend his birthday in a group home, right? And so I was like, of course, send him here. There's just those times when you have to set aside yourself and think about the children because their lives are so short. They grow up so fast. And so meanwhile, while they were prepping him to bring him over, I ran to the store, grabbed some balloons, I grabbed a present and wrapped it. My adult children grabbed some presents, wrapped them. I got a cake. And then we just went to the park, and I had a tablecloth, and I just set up this picnic table, and we had a makeshift birthday party for him. And so he came over, and he was like super surprised, and he was like, oh yeah, people get presents for their birthdays. It was like, again, just another one of those things that just tugged at my heartstring. Like, here's this kid that, going through so much and hadn't even had a birthday party in I don't know how long. And so we celebrated, took tons of photos, and played some games, and just really took time to love on him. And hopefully he looks back on that day and he feels special. So he did spend the weekend with us. And as I said, this went on for probably about a month. And then last I heard, he was about to exit custody to go to a relative. I think what was taking so long was background check. There's different things. So the department does have to check out that person. You can't just come forward and say, hey, I'm his aunt, give him here. Like, they do have to check into that person, do a background check on them, check their home, make sure it's safe, stable, suitable for a child. So they were doing their due diligence, but I guess it took a while. But I'm just super happy to know that he's still doing well. He's a resilient kid. And I'm hoping that one day soon, who knows, in 5 more years, maybe he'll re-enter my life again. I don't know. But, wherever you are, I hope you're doing well, and know that we still love you, and you'll always be a special part of our life. But thanks everyone for watching. That's O's story, and I hope you all are inspired, and I'm just always super happy when I see those little, just how God orchestrates different things. So thank you all. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.